Medal of Honor at one point was the world's biggest World War shooter game of all time, but after a few years it was replaced by Call of Duty. So did Call of Duty kill Medal of Honor? Well, wait till the end of the video because something did happen that created Call of Duty. The first Medal of Honor game came out in 1999 based on Steven Spielberg as he was working on Saving Private Ryan movie, as well as he was inspired by his son playing GoldenEye 007. So the first Medal of Honor game was developed by DreamWorks Interactive, which was a joint venture between DreamWorks SKG, which is the film company, and Microsoft. And the game came out to be a major success, with the Metacritics at the time giving it a 92 rating. The game even got a sequel the year after that called Medal of Honor Underground, which also got as much success as that of the first game. Both of these games came out on PlayStation, but the sequel also came out on Game Boy Advance. Unfortunately, the studio's reputation was hampered because in 1998 they released a game called Trespasser, which was based on Jurassic Park. At the time, people said that the game had numerous technical issues and an awkward mechanics system. At the time, this game was considered the worst video game of all time. And because of that, Steven Spielberg was in doubt whether this video game company can actually work out. So from there, EA came into the picture and they acquired the company of DreamWorks Interactive from DreamWorks and Microsoft and renamed the company EA Los Angeles. But before EA Los Angeles could make any Medal of Honor game, in 2002, a new Medal of Honor game came out called Medal of Honor Allied Assault, which was made by 2015 Incorporated. This game was a PC exclusive, but it became a huge success and won a number of Game of the Year awards and also became the best cinematic first-person shooter game at the time. It also had two major expansions. One of them is called Spearhead and the other one is called Breakthrough. EA Los Angeles in the same year would make another Medal of Honor game called Medal of Honor Frontline, which was released only on console. This game also got good success, selling almost 2.5 million copies. But it was right after this moment where Medal of Honor started declining, and they had no idea that this new franchise is started to grow up, which will just change first-person shooters forever. After Allied Assault was released, some of the members of the 2015 Incorporated were dissatisfied with their contract under EA and decided to leave the company. They were Grant Collier, Jason West, and Vince Zampella. All of them together founded Infinity Ward under Activision. That's how the very first Call of Duty game was ever made. The game was launched in 2003 and was very similar to Medal of Honor. Some might say it was a jab at Medal of Honor, but it showcased multiple viewpoints staged in American, British, and Soviet theaters of World War II. The game introduced a new take on AI-controlled allies who would support the player during the missions. The game would win several Game of the Year awards in 2003 and many other awards following that. From there, Call of Duty became so popular that Microsoft wanted Activision to make another Call of Duty game so that they can make it a launch title for their upcoming Xbox 360 console. And that's why Infinity Ward made Call of Duty 2. The game also gained major success and sold 1.4 million units in its first year. Meanwhile, Medal of Honor would release games like Rising Sun, exclusive to console, Pacific Assault, exclusive to PC, European Assault, exclusive to consoles. These games were not bad, but there were flaws, and people preferred Call of Duty instead. And since Call of Duty was the talk of the town, a lot of people just did not want it to go back to the same kind of game that Medal of Honor has been making every single year. Even though Pacific Assault looked amazing and had some great mission, still it followed the same path as the older game and also came out with various technical issues. The same was said with European Assault and Rising Sun. Another issue for Medal of Honor was not releasing the games in all platforms. Some came out exclusive to console, while some came out exclusive to PC, and that hampered their sales very much. By this time, EA would also release another new first-person shooter game called Battlefield. And even though there were a couple of Battlefield games already out with Battlefield 1942 and Battlefield Vietnam, it was Battlefield 2 that brought the game on the map. It was one of their biggest games that was released in 2005, which had players battle in a full-scale war with modern weapons. The single-player aspect featured missions that involved clashes between US Marines, China, and the fictional Middle Eastern Coalition. The multiplayer aspect, however, was something entirely new, where players are organized into squads and there's a leader who can command to promote teamwork. The game would allow up to 64 players, where players could use internet to play with each other. Players could also select from various classes, use vehicles, and it just brought so many players into this huge map. The game was a critical success and it not only won a lot of awards, but it also sold around 2 million copies. Meanwhile, the journey of Medal of Honor kept on declining. EA would publish 3 more games in 2007. 2 of them were exclusive to PS2 and Wii, while one of them, Airborne, was released on most platforms. Neither of these games were able to attract an audience that well because, again, these games were focused on World War II, and mostly they were similar. Many players were just fed up with the same World War II scenario and the same things over and over again, and the game not doing anything new to capture their attention like Call of Duty was doing. This is where EA would put Medal of Honor on hold and instead focus on Battlefield. But another bigger reason why Medal of Honor in 2007 did not work out, because Call of Duty brought something that changed first-person shooters forever. In 2007, Call of Duty released Modern Warfare, a game based in modern times with modern guns, insane graphics, and a storyline that nobody saw coming. The game was developed in IW Engine that featured dynamic lighting, HDR effects, dynamic shadows, and more. The game also used dynamic physics engine that was never used in any Call of Duty game before. The game also featured a multiplayer that has Team Deathmatch mode, which is now so much popular that every single first-person shooter has a Team Deathmatch. But because of that multiplayer, it took Call of Duty to even greater heights. Even right now, Call of Duty fans absolutely love original Modern Warfare's multiplayer. The game was a huge success in all platforms, with reviewers saying that it's the best high-quality campaign that they have seen with a terrific multiplayer that makes this game a great package, with some marking a drawback of how the single-player campaign would end fairly quickly. The success of Modern Warfare was so big that Infinity Ward would make 2 more Modern Warfare games, with Modern Warfare 2 selling over 550 million copies in the first week, and Modern Warfare 3 sold 400 million copies in the first 24 hours. Call of Duty was at an all-time high, and they kept on releasing new games every single year, and every single year people loved playing that game, and the game would perform so well, not only in terms of income but also in terms of player satisfaction. Taking a look at all this success, EA decided to reboot Medal of Honor games by making Medal of Honor in 2010. This time the game ditched the World War II scenario and instead went to the modern times, making the campaign a lot more serious. The game received generally positive reviews praising the game's engaging multiplayer, audio and voice acting, but was criticized on few technical issues and how it was very similar to Call of Duty and EA's own Battlefield. The reason why they compared Battlefield because in the same year of 2010 on March, EA released Battlefield Bad Company 2, the game that changed Battlefield forever. With stunning graphics, destruction and gameplay, this game even now is considered to be the best Battlefield game of all time. So rebooting a franchise like Medal of Honor and releasing it in the same year as that of Battlefield Bad Company 2 was definitely not a great idea. But maybe rebooting the franchise was a good choice. Unfortunately, the sequel made matters worse. The Medal of Honor Warfighter, which was the sequel to Medal of Honor, received a mixed response. The game's visuals were amazing, but the game was executed so poorly with bad AI, confusing storylines, which had a linear gameplay as that of any other Medal of Honor game. Every single reviewer rated it a 6 or 5 out of 10, and the game also sold 300,000 copies only, which was significantly lower than what they expected. The game also had a controversy as the members of Naval Special Force Warfare Development Group would release classified information to game's creators without taking their permission. Ever since this failure, EA never made another Medal of Honor game. The studio behind these Medal of Honor games was also shut down. Even though in 2020, Respawn Entertainment would make a Medal of Honor VR game, but that also got mixed and average responses. But after 2012, Medal of Honor just became a forgotten franchise. A franchise that kick-started games like Call of Duty and even Battlefield. And right now, Call of Duty is still at an all-time high, selling games every single year, earning a lot of money and a lot of fan base, with Call of Duty being still the #1 best-selling games on PlayStation. In the end, maybe Call of Duty did kill Medal of Honor, but at the same time, the studio never got out of World War II scenarios. Instead, they kept on making the same game over and over again, and that eventually led to the death of Medal of Honor.